Okay, so tonight, like I said, specifically we're working with the Revolve project, making a Revolve vessel, or making a vessel, ideally a planter to hold a little plant, using the Revolve tools and such. So the main goal here is we're simply making a partial profile that then use the Revolve tool to spin around and make a three-dimensional solid that is curved rather than straight up and down, which we did with the extrude tools. With that, we're going to use the different tools to cut holes in the bottom, drainage holes, make a tray. We also have some advanced options to make patterns, things like that. We'll get into it in a moment. So let me hop over and we will get to that. So again, I just showed you this. The basic project simply taking a object, taking that profile, spinning it around using the Revolve tool, which if you mouse over Revolve, as you can see, takes a profile, spins it around a chosen axis or axis point, and creates a solid and round shape. We're making this in two separate components, not just bodies, but components. If you look here on the project tree, the very top now has this little symbol. Instead of the solid square that it normally has a symbol for a stack of squares, or cubes rather. This is the symbol for that there are multiple components. A component is simply just an organizing feature, just an organizing method within Fusion. But a individual or a component can have its own origin point, its own bodies, its own sketches. So you can even nest components within components. Then why would you do that if you're making, say, like a complex assembly, like a robot arm? You would have like the whole arm is the whole project. Well, within the arm, maybe the upper arm, the lower arm, and the hand are each their own components. And then within that, you would have like the fingers would be each their own components there. So you'd have nested things within. And the reason for doing that, one, is so you can help organize the whole thing, kind of keep things a little bit separate. The other thing is for how the joint tools work within Fusion, the things that actually add hit or that actually allow you to animate parts. It works by making sure that things are separate components, not just bodies within the same component. So it's not just a way to organize; it's also a requirement feature. So whatever. We'll get into the reasons why later and when it's actually more applicable, but that's how it goes. And here we use the extrude tool and the extrude. Actually, in this case, I used emboss because I didn't want the holes to just be straight through. The holes here actually angle with the curvature of the body. So these are all straight through at an appropriate angle all the way around, and then use the circle pattern tool to take that pattern and spin it all the way around the project. The zoom box is in my way. And also the text. Text can be applied with the emboss tool to give actual curvature as well, so it's not just flat there. So the whole point there is making stuff actually fit. For examples, for surface features, I talked to you all about this one. Now this one is very basic, just using the emboss tool to create extrude or to create projections off the surface. Then I use the fillet tool to round them out. I also use the extrude on top to cut a profile directly forward, and then use the circle pattern tool to create multiples of that as well to create that scalloped edge. Now, those are just really basic. I'm going to show you how to use the different tools to create, instead of just single rows, create offset rows and such. We can certainly take that further by using the same tools to create sections and then making multiples of those sliver sections to create things like baskets and such. This is the exact same set of tools, just taken a little bit further. And we could even go really a lot further. Now, this technically doesn't use the Revolve tool, but this is using surfacing tools to create nested geometric shapes and such within. So you can see how you can take these really basic things and really take it much further. So let's start simple. Open a new project. What do you do first? Save, so it'll save. All right, well, problem here is I opened everything and it's still in the keychain project. So open your data panel, make sure you are currently in the correct folder, which is the Revolve project. Now when I save, it'll be there. Example, in class, we'll say multi-vessel. So I can just use the same project, bless you, and we can do the whole thing together. All right. So one of the quick things is just general dimensions. We want to make it roughly like 120 by 120. Those dimensions, like I said, rough. You can move it around however you need. That is just a rough guide. So what I like to do is just first create a bounding box. And all that is literally a reference. So I'm going to create a sketch on the XZ axis. So X is the red, Z being the blue. So if I'm working straight in front of me, I'm going to create just a rectangle here using the 2-point rectangle tool. Snap right in the origin plane and the origin point, and then I can just write that in manually. So I don't know, let's say 100 by hit tab and it bounces the other option, 120. There we go. F6 and it resizes. Now with this, I don't want to leave this as a solid. So I'm going to double click on here and press X on my keyboard or come over here to line type, construction. That leaves it as this little dotted line. That's it. Finish sketch. I just want that as a reference point. If you want to leave those dimensions out, you go over to the sketch, and I will slow click this to rename it. Reference box. If I can spell. There we go. You right click on there, go down to show dimension, and your actual dimensions will show up. So it's kind of irritating that your dimensions don't automatically show up, but at least now you can actually see what the dimensions are should you need that. All right, start another sketch, exactly the same spot. It's just that them being two different sketches, I can hide one, I can hide one or the other, make it easier on myself. And for this, obviously, you do whatever you please. If you want to bring in a background image to make a reference, make it look like a certain cup or something like that, more power to you. You want to make it a Stein, you want to make it a Stanley Cup, anything like that, whatever. This, I'm just making a basic shape, and because I want it curvy, we're going to use a fit point spline. Start somewhere on the top. You do not have to start at the top. Heck, you don't even have to start at the line. You could make it bigger, smaller, whatever. The first two lines, or the first 2 points, it's a straight line between the 2 points. Once you do a third, now it's starting to curve. If you mouse over and actually get it close to the line, it'll snap and keep on that line, but you can always move those points around. No biggie. Curvy, 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 whatever. Now, from here, you can either keep going all the way, or we can just kind of draw downward, maybe to where it meets that bottom line, make the last point, and hit enter. So you have your handlebars here. We can click and drag our points around if you want to maneuver the actual curve points, or remember, you can use these green handlebars to rotate, to move the curve, stretch them, gets all wonky, or Control Z, because I don't like any of those options. And there we go. To make a flat bottom, use a straight line tool from where I just was and straight over to the origin point. There we go. Now, you can make your own custom inside profile, but like I said, be lazy, let the program do the work for you. I'm going to use the offset tool here. Select there, and I'm just going to drag inward. Let's say 3 millimeters. So -3 because it's going the opposite direction. 3 millimeters is plenty fine. Hit OK. There we are. Now, this is still not a closed sketch. These are just 2 lines offset from one another. We still have the gap between. So we can do like draw straight lines between here. So line tool, point to point. Do the same down here, point to point. It is very important, though, you do not let this line go past go past the Z-axis, the up and down, because you want it smack in the middle. You want it right there because that's what we're going to use to rotate around. Technically, you could make it beyond, but then you're going to have to do some cleanup and trimming and such, and then it's just more work for you, so don't do that. Now, one quick thing, as I zoom in here, I can see that there's this weird little kick down here. It went beyond them. That's going to make an odd foot that if I went to print this, there would be like a little floating cavity underneath. So if I want to correct that, I could either use a line tool and just draw straight out. And now I could use the trim tool to trim that little chunk off. Or I could click that point, bring up the handlebar, drag the handlebar down to where it matches with that line. Now it's a flat line. I could probably even use the tangent tool, but no longer necessary there. So that's a place where you definitely can make use of the handlebar tool, and it makes quick work of what you're trying to do. So there we go. Either one, I can leave that little line floating, or if I really don't want to, I can delete it, or I can press X, turn it into a construction line, So it's just a reference point. That's it. All right. Up here, if I want, I could add a curvature. Now, I do not recommend, in fact, it's really a bad idea to try to use fillet tool here, because on an offset, you can do one, but now if I do the other, it usually goes all kinds of wonky. See, it's trying to do some really weird stuff. So it's a lot better to use the fillet on the completed edge rather than right here. If you really want it rounded, go to create and use a different circle, use a 2-point circle, and just use a 2-point circle to draw from point to point. Now you've got a rounded top. However you want to work it, there you go. All right, finished sketch. And there we are. We'll rename to vessel profile. That'll work. Hit the home button. Let's save there just for myself. That way you got some reference points. Profile, cool, or perfil, since I didn't spell it. Next step is just the Revolve tool. Go there, you select your profiles, which is just this one. Now, double check that you get, if you use that flat point, or if you added the circle, make sure you grab all the things you want to make sure you're using. Toolbox, go to what is your axis. In this case, that line is also the z-axis, so same diff. It's also why I like to draw that bounding box. It just makes it a little bit easier to see. But if you don't have one, just grab the z-axis, and bam. Actually, that'd be a pretty nice planter. Anyway, so there you go. That's how you can create that. If you wanted, you could even say, what if I wanted to make like something that would be flat, and I could give it a flat back on it, and then maybe I could make like a wall hanging one. All right, 180 degrees, only make half of one, and then make the backside flat. But in this case, we're going to keep it at full 360 to finish this out. Cool. All right, that's pretty much it. Now, this one is a flat bottom. I showed you examples before how you could go back in, alter the sketch if you need to. If you wanted to add feet or something, you could go in and make like these little kickstands or something like that effect. And then you could always go in and say, use the Revolve tool, either the exact same Revolve tool, or you could even use that. Let's go through the same process, select that profile, select the axis. And in this case, I'm just going to make two little nublets here. And let's say, I don't know, 20 degrees. I could make little kickstand parts and make multiples of those. Go from there. I could use the fillet tool and round that out, however you want to do it. But I'm not going to do that with this one. I think the flat bottom works pretty well. Okay. Now, so far, I've left this right in the middle here, or meaning right here as it is. I've not added any components. One other thing I will go, since I haven't yet, might as well make the tray as well. Do the exact same thing. Sketch, front profile. Your sketch for your profile or for your vessel could either be right on here, or you could kind of have it floating, meaning as long as you start at the z-axis, draw outward, and I don't know if you want to make it a straight angle, or from there, then you could make the curvature that you want. If you want to make it a slightly deeper tray, great. This would be a point again. You could use the handlebars to adjust that curvature so it's a little bit smoother transition. Cool, that works. Same thing again, offset tool. Let's make it go the other way, or you can have it go closer, doesn't matter. These two objects can be floating apart from one another, perfectly fine, does not matter one way or the other. Let's close up this sketch, straight line, and straight line over here. Great. Finish sketch. And I'll rename that tray profile. I keep misspelling profile. I slip and forget the O. There we go. And then revolve, real straightforward. Axis, there we go. And this one we do not want to do partial. We want to go full 360. Cool. All right. Gonna hide the sketches for now. Leave it be. All right. So that's my basic vessel. Yep. We're still going to add holes, all that kind of thing. Show you how to do that in a moment. Let's save. Vessel and tray. All right. So one of the major parts is I want you to put these in their own components. So to add components to a project, go up to Assemble, and this little this little block stack here symbol, or if you make the drop down, it's the very first one, new component, tells you it just creates a new component. Hit OK, and let's say one is going to be vessel. Now, don't have to hit anything else on here, but if you leave this checkbox active, what will happen? Look at the very top of my project tree here on the upper left-hand corner of the view screen, and this little circle with a point inside. That is meaning the whole project is active. Now, if I hit OK, that's going to go away, and it's going to activate the new component I just created, vessel, and anything outside of that component is now ghosted out. It's still there. It's just it brings the opacity down, so you're not focusing on that. If I build anything in this project, in this component, that is going to be the focus, and that's how you can isolate things. But if you want to, say, like, bring stuff over, all you have to do is you can click and drag. So I want this vessel into this component. Click, hold, drag, highlight right on the component part, plop. Brings it down, and since I have auto color on, it brings that to auto color. If I go back and activate the whole project at the very top, you can see that now the vessel is yellow and the tray is that kind of peach color. Do the same thing, or what you can do, I forgot to label that. I currently have now the whole project active, and the tray is what is highlighted. Just I've selected that. Now if I go to new component, it is automatically selecting that, and it's not even letting me add in a label or anything. So now when I hit OK, still have activate, that is automatically pulled that object into a new component and activated it and given it a new auto assign color, turquoise. So now when I go back up, activate the entire project, now you can see that they are now multiple different colors. Just shows you the different colors so you can more easily see it. Again, how I'm getting that is press on your keyboard, Shift in, Shift November. That goes back and forth between the appearance tool. So the default is like brush steel or something. Shift in, and it gives it auto color just so you can see what you're doing a little more clearly. That's it. Those are two different ways you could bring objects to their own new components. All right. So next is I want to add holes to my vessel so it's not just a bowl. If you want to make a really nice cup, that can happen too, but for the sake of the project, we're cutting holes in it. Now, before, all the objects and such, the bodies, were in the main general component. Now they're in the isolated one. So I want to make sure that the holes are only created and affect only the vessel. So what I'm going to go do is drop down, activate the vessel, that project. See how the other part ghosted out? Cool. If you don't want to see it at all, and it's kind of just interfering, hide it. Toggle the visibility. All right. So the easiest way to do that, or do this, is just cut some holes in the bottom by sketch and extrude. So I'm going to orbit down, select sketch. Now you can either use the standard plane, or you can actually select the bottom of the object itself. If it's flat enough, you can draw directly on there. But in this case, doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to select the plane, and we'll use the object later. Select there. There we go. All right. So in this case, just a circle is fine. Somewhere right on this axis. Let's say about there. I don't know, 5 millimeter hole, 6 millimeter hole. That seems reasonable. If you want to make it larger, 10, sure, whatever. Now, I did not assign like a distance there. If you want, we can use a line tool. Start at the origin plane and and then end right at the center of the circle, or have it drawn this line first and then create a circle at the end of this line. Now, the reason I might want to do this is, let me use the dimension tool. Bring that out. That just shows you now the dimension is visible. That's all. Now, the reason I might want to do this is, remember what we talked about the first day? Parametric modeling. What I can do is say I finish all of this, get all the holes down, and then realize actually the holes are too far out, or not far out enough. They need to be changed. Oh, God, I don't want to go in there and like read and change every single one, yada, yada, yada. Or I would need it a very specific length. what I can do is go in here, double click on the line or on the dimension, brings it up and say what it should have been. It should have been, I don't know, 30. Hit enter. It's going to move that circle dependent on the end of that line. The other point is right smack in the middle of my project, the origin point. So that's locked in place. But this point can move around if need be. I could even click and drag. If I bring up the move tool, no, it's locked in place too right now. If I needed to, I could move that around, but right now it's locked. So the only way to change it is changing the dimension, changing numerically. So 40, I don't know. It's going to keep moving around, but that other point is smack in the middle. So it's a really easy way to change things. Now, if I want to make sure this line doesn't interfere with anything, select it, press X or line type construction. Just change it to a dotted line. Now it doesn't interfere with anything. All right, cool. Finish sketch. And with that, we're just going to use the extrude tool, select that circle, bloop, chop up. Now, again, you can just go upward, drag it upward, no biggie. Or if you're unsure if things might change like that, easy way to do this is you have all these options on this toolbox. Start where it started, start plane, that's fine. Direction, it's only going one direction. Right now, the extent is how far that operation goes. The extrude is distance. But let's say I want to make sure it stays at a certain spot. If I select there and go to object and just select the inside face of this vessel, it's only going to cut through all the way through the vessel. But what that also means that no matter how thick I make this, that hole will always cut all the way through the hole. So that's especially important is if, say I modeled something inside this vessel, and if I had just drawn that extrude just at an arbitrary but way too high a length, it might accidentally cut into whatever I modeled inside of that vessel. But if I make the extent to only cut to the other side of this, no matter what I change, it will only interfere or it'll only affect this vessel, the bottom thickness, and it'll always cut all the way through the bottom thickness. Very long-winded way of saying, if you just select the other side and have it cut to that, you don't have to worry about it messing up anything else. Okay. So we talked about using fillet and such to make some curvatures. With that, I can go to fillet. Want to make this rounded, select the inside, or go to full round, and it makes it completely rounded there. Easy, rather than trying to find, all right, just how far can I go? I definitely recommend, though, when you're adding fillets and such, you can click and drag and it'll keep recalculating, but honestly, that's a really easy way to bog down your computer. I recommend just doing numerically. So, I don't know, 0.5. You can see where that gets you. Or, all right, 1, something like that. If you do it numerically, you have a less chance of the computer trying to, like, you dragging it way too far and it trying to calculate some really weird stuff. So, you can keep going at it that way. Or in this case, like I said, oops, I didn't mean to cancel that. Go to full round, and that's just going to make it completely rounded. Okay. So now that I finished that one hole, now what I can do is use the pattern tool. So create, pattern, circle pattern. And I want to make that feature repeated. So I'm going to go to object type, features. So it makes that whole thing right there. My axis, same one, the z-axis there. And now it's going to make multiples. You make however many you want, 3, 5, 77, whatever. That might be a bit much. Lots of drainage holes. Okay. All right. I was running into the same problem last time. For whatever reason, I'm getting this error over here. That it's giving a compute fail. I don't know why. Crucial face is missing. I don't know why it's doing this. It's a simple operation. So if you run into this, sometimes what happens is it just doesn't want to work that way. You got two options to fix this. Let's try repeat the circle pattern. And instead of features, we're going to use faces, which a face is just the plane between edges. So even if that's a curved edge, a curved plane, which is the feature we just created, let's try it this way. Select there, axis, the exact same. We'll do 3 and see if it works. Same error. Okay. So I still don't know what's causing this. I was getting the same thing. So if you get an error like this, no matter what you do, what you're going to end up having to do, go back to the sketch, edit sketch, and you're going to have to use the circle pattern tool to make patterns straight through the whole thing. So unfortunately, I got to select there, my center point. There we go. 3, however many you want to make. We'll say 5. Okay. Finish sketch. The extrude, edit that feature. Now I got to make sure to select all these holes individually. Cut. Okay. Same thing for the fillet, full round. Now I got to make sure to select the inside of each one of these. Now, if it's not letting you, you can either use the plus or X sign here. This just allows you to add multiple things to that same feature. And if it's still not letting me do all of those, for whatever reason, sometimes these tools, this toolbox comes up. If you've already done something, it doesn't want to let you make multiple selections, add multiple selections to it. I don't know why. If you run into this, what I've had to do, just delete that last feature and start a new one, doing the exact same thing. Fillet, full round. Oh, great. Now it's not letting me do it at all. Fine. Let's see if it'll let me select all of them. Okay, awesome. So I guess I'm just going to have to, usually that works. Delete the whole thing, redo the tool. Now you can select multiples before you make the effect. I don't know why it's not letting me. So if you run into this, all right, add selection. Just going to have to do this individually. That is frustrating. I bet if I just used a regular fillet, it wouldn't have done this to me. All right, why is it? What? Select faces that are adjacent to the center faces. Ugh, you are just being a pain in the ass tonight. All right, I'm recording. Fine, we'll just use the regular fillet. For whatever reason, it is just not wanting to cooperate. I just want to make these rounded. So what did we say? 1.5? Sure. 1.5 apparently works as a full round. There, the exact same thing. Sometimes you run into just stupid stuff and you got to deal with it. All right, whatever. Okay, so there we go. Vessel is complete. We got a tray. Go back up, activate the whole project. That's more or less the whole thing. Drainage holes. I guarantee I did not spell that right. All right, so that's the really basic bit. So obviously, I expect y'all to do more than this. So we'll go from there. So let me pause here, and then we will start adding some stuff, some features and such. Oh, I was just pausing the screen sharing, not the recording. Okay, so let's get back on this. Sorry, I had to change this out. Okay, so we did the basic stuff. I want to show you how to make some alterations using some different tools. Now, I showed you these using like, this is extrude pushing outward. This is actually using extrude cutting straight through, because if I look straight down at this, actually all of these circles line up. It's all radiating from the center point, the ones cutting from the outside. Same thing goes for text and such. And then the geometric stuff is far more complex. So let's look at this. Just for reference, I'll repeat what I got down here. Let's activate the tray, and we'll add some text to the front of this. So to add text and such, we're going to use the Emboss tool, which is under Create, Emboss. And that creates raised or lowered surfaces relative to the surface. Basically, it's a three-dimensional offset tool. So to do that, I want to create a sketch. Now, usually you can make a sketch floating inside the object, but sometimes it throws stuff off. So if you can't, or if you do that and it gives you issues, what is usually much more preferable is to create a plane in front. So I've got my vessel, but I want to create a sketch floating out in front of it. You don't always have to. So if we need to, we won't. If we do have to, we'll use it, but there we are. So what I want to use is I want to create a plane floating in front. So this is an offset plane, a construction plane. It's literally just a virtual plane that you work from elsewhere because you can't draw a sketch on a curved surface. So I want to select the same plane we've been working on, the XZ plane. And I'm just going to drag this somewhere out in front, somewhere outside. Doesn't matter. 200 is probably excessive, but whatever. It is irrelevant. All right. So I'm going to create a sketch on this plane. Select there, snaps to front. If the vessel back there is getting obnoxious, let's hide that. Okay. And I'm just going to create text on here, but let's make it a little bit fancier. Couple things. Text, you have to have a box or a reference, something. So actually, I want to create a fit point spline to be my profile because I'm going to make a text on a path. All right. Doesn't matter. Doodly-doodly-doo. I'll hit X to make that a construction plane. All right. Now, if I go to text, instead of regular text, which is just click and drag, make a text box, boring, flat, straight in the middle. Why waste there? Let's do text on a path. Now I got my path. And of course, it flips things around. So right now it's showing upside down and all that kind for reasons. So what we're going to have to do, use mirroring tools here to flip it. There we go. Eventually got it right. So you got some other options here at the bottom, fit to path. That stretches it out so it takes up the whole space. You, of course, have different fonts and all that kind of stuff. Let's say Old Drippy. As now I got Aquatine stuck in the brain. We can make it boldface. Let's make it something more exciting than Broadway. Old Drippy. Fancy. There we go. So you want to make sure that your sketch actually is, in fact, floating in front of your profile. So if you're having difficulty visualizing that, anything like that, I'm going to move this around in a moment. So if you're having difficulty with that, what can be effective is you can make a projection of this curved surface. So I can either just press P on the keyboard or go down here, project include, the first one, project, and I'm just going to select that body of the tray. So when I hit OK, now if I was to hide the body of that tray, now I have this nice clean outline of that object that I can actually interact with. So it's a really convenient tool, to work with. So realize that unfortunately text on the path doesn't put it right in the middle of the path, it puts it above or below. So what I have to do is just adjust that path. No big deal, select it, press M to move. Let's drag it upwards a little bit. Maybe we try to center it a little bit. That seems reasonable-ish. Okay. All right, finish sketch. Unhide the body. Did I hide everything? What did I do here? Bodies, there we are. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is use the Emboss tool, not Extrude, because the difference is Extrude takes that and just creates, now it's selecting the entire thing there. That's there. And that makes a direct straight back. I don't want that. I want emboss, so it starts at the surface, this curved surface. I'm going to select my sketch profile, which is just the text. And the faces is the curvature of my bowl. Great. What did I do? What's the problem? I got an error code and sketch profiles are not coplanars. Deselect sketch profiles that are not on the same plane. What are you talking about? What is the problem here? Never fails to find something wrong. All right. Probably just because the text is a little bit too large. All right, so let me adjust that slightly. Might be because it's getting too close to the top and bottom. I genuinely don't know. Let's try to put this a little bit in the center, which is again why that project is a little bit convenient to work with. All right, let's try that again. Emboss, where'd you go? There we are. My sketch profile, just to that. The faces. Yeah, I know it's not the same plane. That's kind of the whole point. Deselect sketch profile. Never fails. Do something otherwise, it works just fine. Now, not so much. Give me a second. Let me just pause this for a moment. Again. Okay, I found out what's happening. I don't know why it's happening, but I found out what's happening. So the issue is I kept getting an error saying that the sketch is not coplanar with the surface. What that means is that it doesn't match up. Yeah, coplanar doesn't match up. Okay. But what was happening in the reason why every time I made it a sketch and I ended up trying out just making one smack on the regular plane here for whatever reason, and I was working from the front, it kept flipping my text and everything. I don't know why. So I would have to go in to the text when I made the text box and mirror it, stuff like that. Hit OK. The problem, what was happening is it was, even though I was working back here, it was trying to create stuff on the front of the plane, regardless of the fact that my sketch was floating out in front. So it kept flipping things to go the opposite direction. I don't know why. So the error was that's not coplanar. It was trying to create my embossing on the opposing side away from where I had the sketch floating out in front. So I had the sketch floating out in front. It was trying to create the emboss on the back side. And that was just causing all kinds of errors. And when I redid it to create the sketch floating in the center on one of the origin planes, finish sketch, you can see the embossment created on the back side. So it's reversed. I have no idea why it's defaulting to that. So yay, finding out new problems. So with that, it's backwards. So if I want that to read correctly, I have to go back, edit sketch. Let's hide that first one. If I could select what I'm doing here. And I'd have to mirror that. So now when it finally extrudes or embosses properly, at least it's reading properly. It's just on the backside for whatever reason. So, all right, that's fun. So the whole point of trying to do this is what I wanted to show you is, all right, I made an embossment, or I used the emboss tool to have the text or whatever floating forward, and you see it matches the curvature of the surface. And what I can do with that is go to create, use the circle pattern, select those faces, or ideally select those features to grab it all as one thing there. Let's see if it's going to let me do this, because I think it just selected everything. Select the z-axis. Yeah, it's making a whole bunch of instances of the entire object. So apparently Fusion is just really being weird tonight for me. So I'm going to have to go through and select all of these faces individually, or hopefully I can use a selection box from the left, which will only select what it entirely encapsulates. All right, good, that does work. Axis, the z-axis, and now I can use that to make multiples of the same. So text, sketches, whatever, and it will make multiples of that all the way around. Now, hopefully I don't crash it. There we go. Okay, so that was an obnoxious roundabout way of doing something painfully simple. So let's save there. Emboss text. Okay. So now let's do some stuff on the vessel itself. So I hid the tray, all of that. I want to show you how to do some things like, let's see about like making like this basket form. How would I go about doing something like this? Well, to do this, what I'm actually doing is I'm making a cut. I drew a sketch, or I made the object. I drew a sketch of just this line here. See how it just traces along the edge and just makes a curvature? I made that sketch, and what I used is extrude, but I used the tool intersect, which means usually cut or extrude either stretches what it's drawn or cuts away. The third option is that it gets rid of anything outside of that sketch. So I'm just left with that little sliver there. Then I use the fillet to round it out a little bit. And then I made sure, because I want to have it go in both directions, I made a mirror of the same. Then I use a circle pattern tool to create a whole bunch of one type, then a whole bunch the same amount go in the opposite direction, joined them all together, added a top ring and a base, and joined them all together to make this form. So something like that, I could make all kinds of versions of this, or I could make like a pattern cut straight through or so, or use the same and make it an embossment. So let's try that. Because the issues we were running into, let me hit sketch, and the vessel component is currently active. Let's work on the XY plane straight in front, or sorry, XZ plane straight in front. But I am working inside. So let's just draw a little bit here. Let's draw a simple pattern. Let's do a line. I want to make this a construction line. So from top to bottom, or bottom to top, apparently, right about there. Great. So what I can do now, excuse me, let's make a line. Now, as I mouse around and I go closer, you'll see that the cross with the square around it, I'm selecting, it means I'm writing right on that line, which is also right on the axis. But as I get to the middle point, that little arrow, that triangle symbol means center. So let's make that 45 degrees so it is directly diagonal. Cool. There we go. And then I want to make sure that I'm going the same way both ways. I don't know. Sure. Let's make that even. So that would mean, oh, let's change the dimension of that one to, let's make the whole thing 100. So 50. That means the overall one is, oops. Nope. Stop picking what I'm not picking. There. I want to make that one 100. Cool. All right. The reason I'm doing this is I want to use that to create an offset, and I'm just creating like I don't want to grab all of these parts, so let me go to where it says chain selection, deselect that, and it'll let me just select that one spot. Why is it all curving now? Just nothing working correctly tonight. I don't want that. I just want that. There. Thank you, please, and thank you. All right. I don't know. -2. Does not matter. Repeat the offset. Same line. 2. Cool. I'm just using this to create a square. Oh, those keep defaulting to construction lines. Cool. There we are. All right. Trying to make it simple, but apparently it was disagreeing. All right. So with that, yeah, let's hit finish sketch. All right. So what I could do, I've just made a sketch floating in the center. I got a couple options of stuff I can do with this. I could say go to emboss, select that profile, faces, and let's see where it's working. All right. So working on the inside because the sketch is on the inside. Should have been working correctly, but whatever. If I deboss, it'll cut. And if I want, I could do that all the way through. But I could also use this to create on the outside, ideally. I was trying to get this to project outwards, so that's when you need to actually have the sketch floating outside. But it was working all kinds of screwy, and it wasn't agreeing with what I was trying to do anyway, so I don't know. But instead, what I want to do is I want to use the extrude tool to slice through. And in this case, I am just using it to cut through. And again, I could do extent type just to the outside of the object. So it's going to chop all the way through. Cool. Default operation cut. Good. So I got that slice in there. Also, I want it to be going both directions because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cross pattern here. So with that extrude, actually what I should do, because it'll automatically be going the opposite direction for me, let's instead go symmetric so it's going both ways. So now it's cutting both ways. Cool. Oh, wait, no. confused myself doing that. I don't need it going symmetric. One side is fine. I just need to make a mirror of it. There we go. All right. That is really confusing that it's doing that. So since I want to make a cross section here, I can use here, mirror line. There we go. There we go. That's what I wanted. Finish sketch. And because it finishes stuff, it keeps hiding stuff on me. Oh, what is that circle floating out there? Cool. New artifact from somewhere. Oh, this is just bound and determined to be the weirdest stuff tonight. Where is that circle coming from? I don't know. What is that? Okay. Somehow it created, there must have been a circle somewhere, and somehow it created that little floating thing. All right, super weird. I have no idea. Anyway, all I was trying to get to is, all right, I cut through, made this pattern that is within itself going both directions. So now when I go to pattern, circle pattern, and let's try using features, should select all of that. But it's also selecting that little weird doodad. My axis is on the Z axis. So this is going to look super weird right now, but in doing that, repeating pattern all the way through. Now, obviously, this would not function at all because it currently has a floating square in between there. So if I was trying to print this, this would just simply would not work. So this obviously would work a lot better if it were straight up and down, or if they weren't self-intersecting. That's why I made this one floating inside. But if you really wanted to have that kind of a pattern, you could say, like, I don't know, make another one inside, or not have it in itself intersecting, or let's try that. Let's dial that back to, like, I don't know, 4. There. So you can make different versions of it just like that. Honestly, easiest way to go about it would simply be to not have something where it's going to self-intersect in the same sketch. Use something that's just an isolated element and repeat that around. But you could do all kinds of stuff like that by just creating different patterns. So then if you wanted, you could even create things like, let's go back before that. We could even use something like this line that gets created just from the revolve. That actually can become a line. That can become a path. We could use that to then extrude out. We could use that to emboss away, something that maybe the effect of, let's try using the thin extrude tool on that line. It might not let it use it because it's a profile. Okay. I was hoping it would, but it wouldn't. One of the tools that we'll talk about later in the semester is the pipe tool, which basically just creates a 3-dimensional object, circle, square, triangle. Let's say circle for now, based off of any line, any edge. If I select that, I could say, oh, let's make it. Oh. What the hell is going on here now? Don't want you to cut. I just want you to join. Why is a circle not functioning? Anyway, that essentially can create an edge. And even something like that, we could make multiples of. So playing with different tools and repeating the same feature, using the circle pattern for that detail around the original axis. and I can start creating any number of ridges and such like that. I don't know, let's say 25. Now combine stuff like that with the other features we can create, and you can start getting some really funky interactions and such. And even with that, since that line is on the outside, I might even be able to have those floating lines there. So combining different features with different functions will allow you to do some pretty funky stuff. So main thing there is with the advanced options, try using the sketch, emboss, and then circle pattern to create a wide variety of different textures and such like that. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you with those. I'll pause it here, and that way, if we have anything else, we can add stuff to it. Okay, sorry for all that confusion. So the last thing I wanted to show you is how I actually directly how I did like this basket vessel, simply so you actually have that reference in. So what I'm going to do is to get the current model that I was working with, let me move the time slider back to where before I moved anything around. And what I can simply do is just make a copy of this. That way I can have them diverge. The one that I already modeled, it'll stay where it is. This one, I'll have a version. So selecting, and I'm just going to copy, paste. There we go. Don't need to change it. Don't need to move it. Nothing. Vessel 2. Snap to current. It's going to recalculate a bunch of stuff. All the different things I did to this. Give it a moment. Okay. So, and it's showing this weird checkered different pattern because it's two of the exact same object taking or occupied in the exact same space. So that's how Fusion shows that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close these other objects and such. So now I'm back to just having that same default vessel. Okay. Vessel 1 is just the default naming. So let's say this one, vessel basket. Okay. So I'm going to have to redo a few things. That's not a big deal. Construction plane. Floating out in front. Okay. Sketch on that construction plane. I'm going to slice all the way through this. So let's just draw a fit point spline starting on the right side of the, well, it's showing green, but that is the Z-axis going straight up and down. We'll just curve this down and around. There we go. Okay. That I just want to move to where it's kind of more straight up and down. Good. We'll use the offset line to make that thicker. Let's say 5 millimeters. Good. Now I just want to close this sketch. So it doesn't matter. I'm just drawing across both, pan down, across both. There. Light blue, it's a closed sketch. Good. Finish sketch. Now it automatically hid because I had sketches hidden. That's all. Let me open this up. And we'll say basket sketch. Okay. All right. So with that, now I'm going to use the extrude tool, select that profile, and I'm going to drag it inward. And let's just go to the profile plane. So instead, I can't remember where that is, guessing, unhide the origin plane, go to extent type, to object, and I'll just snap to the origin plane. There. So it keeps it locked exactly to that spot. Hit OK. Don't hit OK. It's currently cutting. I don't want to cut. I want to show you the third option, intersect. So far, join combines things together. Cut does exactly that. Intersect gets rid of everything else other than just that section. So hit OK. There we are. Now, it is helpful to go ahead and mirror this, meaning that I want a second version of this. But let's rotate this around, and I'll figure out what we got first. All right. So not revolve. I'm going to use the pattern tool, circle pattern, not features, but bodies. I want that whole body, and I'm going to revolve it around the Z-axis. You can see exactly where this is going now. 25? Sure, we'll use 25 of them. Hit OK. Now, this might bog your computer down because look what just happened. I created, well, 25 instances of that same thing. You know, actually, I kind of like that opening. I was going to close this all up in the bottom. I don't mind that at all. Cool. Okay. So let's simplify things and kind of simplify stuff for my computer. Use the combine tool, join. So target body is literally any of them. It does not matter which one. Tool bodies, click and drag to use a selection box, selects all the other ones. This might bog your computer down a bit, but this will actually help simplify things. Hit OK. That instantly locked them all together. That's not bad. Now, honestly, one of the things I probably should have done was round these edges out. So before I do that, let's save and save basket because this might crash your computer. So let's go back, pull the slider back before the circle pattern. And what I'm going to do is I can insert a new tool right between here by just moving the time slider here. And as I start a fillet, let's use a full round and select both faces. Either side. I don't know why it's doing this tonight where it won't let me select multiple faces. There we are. Full round. It just curves it around. That is all. I can leave the bottom square, but let's not. Let's include that. I don't know why it's not wanting to do more. That is really weird. Great. And now it's leaving this little weird flat section. Oh, always something fun, huh? All right. Tell you what. Let's cancel that. Repeat fillet. And we'll just use a regular fillet. Across the whole face. Whole face. Let's try what 1 does. 1 millimeter. Might be too big. All right. I can't remember how thick this is. Let's say 0.5. Still giving me errors. That is so strange. It is just really being argumentative tonight. All right. Let's try just with the edges there. Let's try that. Still giving me errors. Man. So if we try a smaller size fillet, sometimes it'll get around it. All right, there we are. I'm just trying to round this out a bit. And it's just because it had this really sharp edge here. If we kind of change some stuff around, I might be able to get around some things. Let's hit OK. I do want to round this out evenly also, so let's repeat that fillet on just those 2 edges. 0.5. There. At least the curvatures now match. Okay, that's all. Oops. F6. Resizes. Now, when I click back to fast forward all the way front, it'll recalculate everything with these fillets. Again, this might bog your computer down just a tad. So it's going to make multiples, and then it's going to join everything together. I'm going to give it a second. I pause here while my computer catches up. Okay. Recalculated. We're all good. Now, there's some weirdness going on the inside. We can fix that if you want to make this just a solid hole, anything like that. This is going to be a really spindly thing, so if I wanted to print this, this would be really problematic in that it's just really delicate. So obviously, like I did with this one, I did a mirror of the 2 and had 2 different ones intersecting because they're going different directions. With this version, I kind of like just a simple one, but I still want to add a top and a bottom. So what I can do, close this up. Let's create a sketch off of the original part. So what I might have difficulty doing is if I try to sketch right here, I'm gonna kind of lose where I am because of all these tines here. They're all floating in different directions. So this is kind of another one of those of, all right, well, why don't I before I extrude or anything like that, let's create a sketch that I can go back to before I do all of this. That was the sketch that I made the profile or made the curve profile. Let's create another sketch right there. And what I'm going to do with this, right there, smack in the middle, and I'm going to use the project tool and copy the whole body here, as well as that edge line. There we go. When I hit OK, let's hide that body. So I'm left with this outline here. And I'm just going to go ahead and all I want to do is I want to just create a circle here. Let's say 2-point circle. So I connect those two dots. Just leaves a little curve there. Great. And then let's do something here at the bottom. Yeah, let's just make a little got this duplicate. Tell you what, why don't I use the offset? They're both right there. What was this, 3 millimeters? Yep. And I'm just going to take a chunk out of this, and I'll show you what I mean. Is I'm just going to draw a line, I don't know, there. See how that closes up the sketch? And then I'm going to do the same up here somewhere. Doesn't really matter where, I'm just kind of making just this little section here. Let's make sure that's 90 degrees from where I want to go. Oh, nope, never mind. Just draw some more out here, and let's just make it perpendicular to there. Cool. And if I want this actually perpendicular to one of these lines, use the perpendicular tool. And the first thing you select is what will move. Second thing you select is what it's related to. Don't know if it'll let me because it is in fact a curved surface. So ignore it. That's fine. Just this little chunk here. All right. Let's hit OK. All right. So I did that because I want to be able to refer back to that line, this sketch, this little section here. It's going to recalculate everything, reshow everything, do all the things. It's always a problem when you splice something back into the timeline. Everything has to come back up to current. I pause, let it continue. Okay, recalculated. Now, nothing changed yet. Because what I want to do, see, that sketch is still floating there. So good. Now what I can do is I can go back, use a Revolve tool, and I'm going to go in and select the circle out of that sketch, and then that little bottom edge right there. And then I'm going to select the axis, the standard one, the blue one, the z-axis, and it's going to create a new body. Not that much to sketch, it's just a circle. Operation. Oh, I didn't want it to operate anything, just new body. There we go. So now the reason I did that, see, now it's got this little ring here. It's got this little circle connecting everything. And also at the bottom, it's got that heavier side at the basket. So cool. Now, frankly, the top one's a little small. I probably should make that circle a little bit larger. I can always go back in and do exactly that. Same thing. This will be kind of a pain to print because it's got all of these straight across circles here, but we can play with that too. Hit OK. Now, of course, it did still make that different sections, meaning without the basket, it's still these floating sections here. But I can go in and just use the combine tool. Say target is the top, tool bodies are the other ones. What is going on here? Well, now I'm getting another error. Here, overlap. Faces and edges are clearly constant. Great. It is just one of these kind of nights. All right, let's select all those, and the tool body will be the ring. Let's see if I get errors now. All right, by the bottom. I'm still getting the same error? No, the bottom, I'm not getting the error. So I can join those at least. All right, so I'm left with that ring floating and my connected basket stuff. So what might be the problem is just because it might be leaving weird gaps and such. So I think what the issue is simply that I should make that ring a little bit larger diameter. So which was that? Right there, edit sketch. So let's go in, let's just make that circle a construction line, and let's just make that circle a little bit larger. Before, I don't know, let's make it 10. Let's just make it a lot bigger. Okay. Finish sketch. Oh, I shouldn't have recalculated so much. Now it's going to keep doing this. Pause again and let it recalculate. Okay, recalculated, all that such. Now that was just changing, and what happened there? Who knows? That is a weird one. I don't know what it recalculated to there. So let's make sure to change that up. Edit feature. Oh, when I changed that all around, it did some weird stuff. So let's hide the bodies. Laughy, laughy. Let's make sure we select all of these all these pieces. Why isn't it letting me? What is going on here? There. I don't know why it wasn't letting me select them individually. With the selection box, it let me. Wow, what a hassle tonight. Axis, Z-axis. Currently, I have the bodies hidden. There. Big, large, oversized circle there. Operation, new body. Great. Hit OK. It's giving me an error for the combine. That's all right. Edit feature. Because this is where I wanted to select all the tines for the basket. Tool bodies is the new circle. Hit OK. All right. All of that frustration just to make a bigger circle. There we go. So the main thing there was simply a way for me to make sure that these floating tines were not going to be an issue. As in, now if I were to print these, at least the top rung would hold them all in place much, much better. All that kind of thing. Now, I will tell you, this would probably be a nightmare to print because of these flat section from time to time, but that's a minor issue that could be probably solved with some clever adding of like an art curvature or something into the mix. But for now, we're going to leave that as I just wanted to show you how you could make a basket out of curved sections and such. So we'll leave it at that for now, and hopefully your program is working a lot better than mine is tonight, and we'll deal with the issues as they come. So good luck with it. Remember, basic form, add features to it, and that must have drainage holes, must have a tray and a vessel, and they should be on, or they need to be on different components unto themselves. You can, of course, add features, holes, textures, protrusions, scalloped edges, things like that. Make it completely out of a swept or a single object of using the combine and intersect, or go crazy. Although it doesn't use the this model does not use Revolve, so not this one. So we'll close it anyway. End up with the basket, all kinds of craziness. So however you would choose to interpret this, the main thing is you got your basic vessel, you got the basic components of it. It's all, or the basic elements of it. Got to have drainage holes, that sort. From there, build out, create different models, create surface features, that sort. Experiment, play, and don't forget to save often, because if you're starting to do multiple iterations and things like this, It can really bog down your computer like you just saw. So good luck, hopefully have fun, and if you need to, take a break. Thank you very much for your attention tonight. I know this was a lot more chaotic than it had any right to be. Hopefully it was just a program tonight. All right. Have a good night. Thank you very much.